To install LLxprt Code and show how it can connect to the new Cerebras Code Qwen3 coder model. This is a 80 billion input model, and it's probably the first open weight or open source one. This was an open weight one that I've been able to use to actually do code generation. So first we'll install LLxprt Code from npm. You can also use npx, and you'll also find instructions on how to connect to a Docker container on the LLxprt Code repository website on GitHub. All right, LLxprt Code is now installed, and we'll go ahead and run it by typing LLxprt. This will pop us into the default Gemini model because we forked LLxprt from Google's Gemini CLI. It comes with the Gemini model as your default. You can change what model you use as your startup or default model in interactive mode, but that's what comes when you first install. It will let you, the first time you talk to it, if you haven't already authed to Google, I have, so it's not going to pop up. It will ask you to authenticate with Google. You can control what you're willing to authenticate to in this menu by typing auth. You see that we can authenticate to Google, we can authenticate to Qwen, and we can authenticate to Anthropic. So you'll be able to use the free tier of Google, the free tier from Qwen, and your Claude Max and Pro accounts if you so choose to. All right, that being done, we can just go. One other thing that we might want to look at is the IDE connection. Because I've already got the IDE plugin installed, it doesn't show it in the menu, but it's connected to my VS Code. If there are any edits proposed, it will actually show them in VS Code in the editor. So I'll tell Gemini, take a look at this code base and tell me what it does. Although there are tool specs, Gemini first tries to run the read folder with tool without any arguments, even though it specifically tells it how to call it. And then Gemini being Gemini, it didn't actually look at the code base. It just found the README file and blurted out what was in the README file. Okay, well, that's fun. So we'll go ahead now and switch to the OpenAI provider. However, we're going to put in the base URL for Cerebras. That will connect to Cerebras. We'll put a key file of you can also use key, and key will mask whatever you paste into it. You can also use environment variables. You can also use command line arguments. If you type LLxprt / or -- help, it'll tell you what they are. I just prefer to use the key file for convenience, and it tends to do less silly things to it. So now I'm connected to Cerebras. I will now also select my model, which I'll select this Qwen3 coder 480B that's included with the Cerebras Code subscription. And then I'll tell it, look through the code base and tell me what this does. One word of warning is LLxprt doesn't by default know anything about the model that you're about to configure. So right now it still thinks that it has a 1,000,000 token context limit. We're going to modify that in a moment. You can change all of the different model settings. I admit the UX isn't yet where I would like it to be, in part because supporting all of the different models on all the different providers, including local, means that we have a lot of switches that we can toggle. In the future, I'm going to have a menu and some well-known models that will be able to select by default. However, right now you're able to use your LM Studio, whatever provider you like, whatever model you like, the different ways to authenticate and use either subscribed or free free tiers from Google, Qwen, and Anthropic. Just some of the times you need to do a few extra steps to make sure the model has the right settings. You can see that Qwen is actually looking at the code base as opposed to what Gemini did, which was just find the README file and spit it out. This is actually closer to Claude's behavior. I found the Qwen3 model is really, the Qwen3 480B model is really close to maybe a Sonnet 3.7. I don't think it's quite up to Sonnet 4, although at times it'll do a better job of debugging or proposing a design or what have you better than Sonnet 3.7 would do. But on the whole, I find it to be about that level. I've been able to use it for both debugging, generation. I have used it for autonomous generation. I have not yet used the hosting of it on Cerebras for autonomous generation. That's something I'm planning on doing later today. You can see it came back with a nice analysis. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is tell it to, first what we're going to do is going to set that context limit to 100,000. I think it's like 131,000 on Cerebras, but it's good to have a little bit of headroom. You can look at what all the different settings are currently running by typing diagnostics. There are a lot of different settings that you can call and set. So you can set different model parameters. You can also set various things like the emoji filter, because I don't like emojis. So another thing I like to set is the shell replacement to be true, to allow shell replacements. That's a security feature that came from Gemini CLI that it's off by default, but we allow you to enable it to be true. Okay, so if you don't want to have to type all of this every time, you can type profile save and give it a name. You can see I already have one. That means that next time you won't have to type the base URL or the key or any of that. You can just go ahead and load your profile. You can also then, from the menu, type profile load Cerebras Qwen3, and it will come up with the Cerebras model again. All right, so that's how you use Cerebras code on LLxprt. I appreciate your watching and hope you find this useful and LLxprt as well as Cerebras code useful.